He lost none of the hunger.
Rosso.
Lost none of the desire.
Rosso.
Lost none of the speed. Again, and clinches his seventh MotoGP World Championship.
Rosso.
What a story.
Rosso.
Comeback king.
Sono rosso.
Welcome back to the Crash MotoGP podcast. Sort of. We kind of teased this on our Monday episode as we reviewed the Czech Grand Prix from Brno, that we would have a bunch of mini episodes, YouTube specials, short little clips here and there, talking about what we expected to be, what we now think is MotoGP's 2027 silly season, because now that MotoGP and the manufacturers have their own commercial deal in place, we alluded to that it would open the floodgates for rider announcements for the grid. We reckon about 2/3 to maybe 3/4 of the grid is now pretty much confirmed. But we thought we would tackle the big ones right here and now. And this is the first one, the biggest domino of all, as Gigi Linehan would say, the most important rider on the grid. And me and Pete McLaren are going to talk about it now, because Marc Marquez is a factory Ducati rider. We kind of knew that already, but we got the announcement this morning. It's a brand new 2-year extension taking him through to the end of 2028. And Ducati have got their man again, and I don't think this was in any real doubt, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of relief that they can finally put pen to paper and the Marc Marquez is with them going into a new era of MotoGP next year.
That's right, yeah. It's the obvious one, isn't it, to kick off these sort of, as you say, open the floodgate on these rider announcements that we're expecting over the next sort of days, weeks, potentially, I suppose. Rumoured to have been done during the winter, really. There was a bit of doubt about would he sign on for 1 year or 2 years, wasn't there? And that was sort of linked with his shoulder recovery and things like that. Obviously, he didn't get to ride the bike after that accident in Indonesia with Bezzecchi when he had the injuries. He didn't get to ride again until the Sepang test at the end of January. So there was a long time off the bike. He didn't know what his fitness would be. As we know, there have now been, or it was necessary to do a follow-up operation, wasn't there? So it wasn't completely smooth, but even by the end of pre-season testing, he was saying he was confident enough that he could do another 2 years. So it was always I suppose some people will always say, was there a chance for him going back to Honda? It didn't seem that way, did it? I think Mark, he went through enough suffering in the past. He knows he's in MotoGP because he wants to win, and Ducati gave him that opportunity. He paid them back in spades with the title last year, and let's face it, he's now well and truly in the hunt for another one this year. So he's got the 2-year deal, as you say, the 850 era. He will now lead them into that. Pirelli tyres as well, so that'll be a whole new experience for him. A third different tyre supplier during his career. So and one of the oldest guys on the grid. It seems strange to say it, doesn't it? This is the guy who's the youngest guy ever to win a MotoGP race, and he's now 33 and will be 35 by the start of 2028. So a long career for Marc, record-breaking career for Marc, and it continues.
If he gets to the end of that contract, I make it 15 years in the Premier class, something like that. Yeah, 15 years, because he debuted in 2013. He's now, despite him being obviously this generational prospect and prodigy that came into MotoGP and won as a rookie, we're now talking about him as the oldest guy, one of the oldest guys, because I think Hans Zarco still got a couple of years on him, but also the most experienced guy on the grid now as well. I mean, he was basically the first year after we dumped the old 800 prototypes. We've now got him here of this last prototype era all the way now to what will be the 850 era and beyond. What a journey it's been. I mean, that's sort of the words Ducati used, the journey of his career. And the ups and downs and whatnot. But incredible to see Marc Marquez still good this well. Like I said, age 35. I know it's weird even talking about Marc Marquez like that, because I remember his rookie season, his first win in Austin when he was just 20 years old, beating Pedrosa straight up, winning his first world title, and then just adding more and more and more to it now. Is now easily one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to ever do it. Do you think he can keep this going until the end of 2028 and still be an elite level rider, still be the number one guy that everybody circles on the list of riders that can do it? Because obviously we're now entering the unknown. Ducati's got a brand new 850 coming around as well. We don't know what the grid's going to look like. Is that part of the reason why you think Marquez maybe only thought about a 1-year deal to begin with, maybe to survey the field a little bit in case the Ducati isn't that strong in 2027, maybe?
Maybe, but I think he was pretty confident that the bikes will be pretty much. It's hard to see a big shift. I think there will be some differences in the order of the manufacturers, the sort of the hierarchy, but I can't sort of see. Let's face it, Ducati at the time was the top. Aprilia of sort of, at the time I'm saying, sort of winter testing, Aprilia have been really strong this year and challenged them. But I can't imagine it completely flipping around for the new 850cc era. And I think, but it was always going to be a gamble, whatever you do, isn't it? Whichever decision you make, you've got some people taking a very different decision. Like Fabio Quartararo, he will be gambling on Honda, making a big step. Marquez is gambling on Ducati sort of staying where they are or re-establishing themselves above Aprilia, if you like. So he's confident in that. Of course, he's staying with the same team. That's always a big thing for a rider, isn't it, for any change? And the bikes, in a way, they're going back to, you were mentioning the start of Marquez's career, they're going back to those sort of style of bikes a bit, aren't they, for next year? Getting rid of the ride height devices, that kind of thing. Bit more, more restrictions on the aero, sort of, it could play into his hands even more. But he's going to have a new challenge, isn't he, in Pedro Acosta as a teammate? That's the other thing as well. Marquez has never been afraid of a teammate. He's had some big challenges, hasn't he, throughout his career with, Jorge Lorenzo, Dani Pedrosa, Joan Mir, Paul Espargaro, those kind of guys. But Acosta's going to be the age difference, just that as well. Such a rider who's so much younger than he is. And I think there's a lot of respect between them. They both know that each other are incredibly talented. So to see them both in the same box, two Spaniards as well, it's going to be interesting. And let's face it, it could be a motivation for Marc as well. Having that new challenge, having reason to keep racing, because he's done it for so many years. He's achieved so much. And he's on the edge of the records, isn't he? The all-time records for the Premier Class. One more title, and he joins Agostini
with 8.
On 8, doesn't he?
Yeah.
One more after that, and he'll stand alone. So, he signed up, hasn't he? It's 3 more seasons. We've got this season and then the 2-year deal. So anything's possible there. 14 wins, and he'll match Rossi's all-time record for Premier Class Grand Prix wins as well. So I think there's a lot to motivate Marquez and to keep him sort of involved in such a demanding sport. And he, not just demanding, but a sport that takes such a toll on his body. That, as he said after this, I hope I don't need any more comebacks. And he's certainly had to make more than a few injury comebacks during his career, isn't he? That record 5-year gap between titles, the last Honda title and the Ducati title last year. I mean, that was, incredible. I mean, that says it all. In a sport that's been going for this long, for that to be the longest gap, it's so hard for someone to stay at that top level and to sustain it, even when you're not winning, and going through all those injuries for year after year after year, to come back from that, really exceptional. So yeah, he's now preparing to start another chapter in his career, and interesting to see what he thinks of it. Obviously got the first ride on the bike, didn't he, on Monday? That private Brno test. Sounds like he might have fallen off it. But it looks like Aprilia Ducati are, at the moment, if the sort of unofficial times are to believe, we're sort of setting the pace a little bit there, but very early days at the moment. And a difficult test, of course. You ride on Michelin tyres for a whole Grand Prix weekend, and then you suddenly switch to a different type of tyre, different type of bike. All of your markers, all of the, are all completely different, aren't they? So we have seen, people get quiet in the past, but there we go. He's got his first taste of the future, and he signed up for another 2 years. So let's see what he can do from there on. But first things first, it'll be Assen this weekend, and closing down even more on Marco Bezzecchi.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a very fascinating title fight. As you know, Marquez only 40 points behind Marco Bezzecchi in the championship lead right now. They had a fantastic fight at this very race at Assen last year. And, you know, you alluded to it, Pete, as well, but Pedro Acosta we expected him to be announced as his teammate maybe as soon as tomorrow. So do stick around on the Crash MotoGP channel for more coverage on that. But they've already had 2-3 fantastic fights this season already. We had the sprint race in Thailand that came down to the steward's office in the end. We had the fight at Mugello that was back and forth for several laps. We had the fight for the win at Balloton as well between them. Those guys are going to be teammates next year, and I think they've probably known for a good while they're going to be teammates next year, and it's going to be fascinating to see what Acosta can do alongside Marquez. And I love that you talked about the motivation to still want to compete, because I think we wrote about it a couple of weeks ago on the site about, you know, Marquez not feeling threatened. You know, like, it's inevitable that younger talent's going to come along that's going to be hungry, that's going to be keen for success. And if there's one thing I've noticed about Marquez over the years, it's that he's obsessed with winning. He did not come back from all those injuries. He did not come back from all those surgeries and all that trauma not to try and win. Because if he wasn't doing that, then what was the point in his eyes? I mean, this is a man who nearly considered retirement when he was going through 3-4 arm surgeries, trying to figure out if he could ever ride at that level again. So it's going to be fascinating to see the future of Ducati, if it's going to be Marquez and Acosta alongside each other, and where does that 850 fit in? And, well, it wouldn't be a Marc Marquez practice session without a crash in there somewhere. He's had a knack of that over the years. That's how he finds his limit. So as soon as I read the reports that Marquez had crashed during the 850 test, I was like, yep, that's Marc, all right. That seems about right. So, yeah, again, first time on a brand new bike. You're going to explore the limits a little bit or use unfamiliar machinery. There's always an increased risk of that. I wouldn't read too much into it all the times, but it's always an eyebrow raiser to keep an eye on that. So yeah, Marc Marquez confirmed until 2028 on the factory Ducati. We expect Pedro Acosta to be announced alongside of it. I think what we'll do is we'll come back when that's officially announced alongside what we think is going to happen, which will be Pedro Acosta to the factory Ducati team, and then Pecco Bagnaia going the other way to Aprilia to fill in their factory lineup for 2027. And we'll talk a little bit about the ins and outs and the movement there. But until next time, I've been Joey Harrison. He's been Pete McLaren. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you guys soon. Take care.